Hello, and welcome to Unfudge Your Marketing. This is a show where I chat with business owners and leaders about their marketing mistakes, mishaps, and most importantly, the lessons that they've learned along the way for all of you, our listeners. I am your host. I'm Christy Mitchell. I'm a marketing consultant and strategist. I work with coaches, consultants, and small business owners who have relied on referrals and word of mouth and are ready to take their business to the next level. And they know in order to do that, they need to finally look strategically at their marketing. Today, I am so excited to welcome Jen Goldman onto the show. Jen brings 30 years experience as a business transformist for small to mid-sized businesses. She has transformed hundreds and trained thousands of service businesses on how to scale up teams, profits, and clients through operational skill and mindset improvements. Jen's expertise includes strategic business planning, staff and provider recalibration, change acceleration, tech integration optimization, lean process creation and implementation, and high adoption of operational efficiencies. Her philosophy includes visualization, productive collaboration, 3Ps and a G, benefit documentation, and IDEOS. Jen's written work can be found in Inc., NAPFA, Technology Tools for Today, Trust Advisor, and many more. Excited to welcome you on the show today.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you for being here. I am super excited. So I always like to let our listeners know how I met my guest. So you and I actually met through Nextco, which if anyone listening has not heard of Nextco and you're in the B2B service provider space, you should definitely check it out. They have chapters all across the US. And it's been a great opportunity for me and my business to network and meet awesome people like Jen.
Absolutely. Right back at you. It's so great, right? To connect across the country and meet people and then find you have commonalities and, of course, stories to tell.
Yes. So you have a tie to where I'm from here in Rochester, New York. Yes?
Yes, I do. Rochester men used to visit the college I went to because it was 15 minutes from where you are. Yep. And I'm from Buffalo, New York. So yep, we definitely have that, as we say, the Western New York edge, not the upstate anymore. I've learned I'm not from the Adirondacks. Yeah.
Yes. Well, yeah, and some people like consider, I don't know, like Albany upstate. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm nowhere near Albany.
I know. It is a large state, though. We'll all agree on that.
Yes, exactly. Awesome. Well, Jen, I'm really excited to chat with you today because I feel like what you and I talked about and the reason for you coming on the show is something that I hear so often, unfortunately, with business owners and those who are leading the marketing efforts. And so what you had kind of posed to me as what we could talk about in this episode was really not sitting down and doing a full marketing plan. And so you kind of jumped right in and started hiring some writers and some different, specific service providers. So I'm going to kick it over to you. Where do you want to start in explaining kind of this journey that you've had with marketing?
Yeah, I'll start from the beginning, which is a long time ago, and say how I kind of fell off the rails, because I think this is so important with businesses. We work with businesses that have done this too, right? So I'm not a hypocrite. I want to explain. When I started, right? It was me. I actually invested seriously in someone who, we did a retreat and we sat there for 2 days and we did everything, whiteboarding and all the things that go into your messaging. And that was awesome. But then I didn't do it again when I changed the brand name. And, the fact of the matter is, when you're scaling up a small business, right? Revenue is important. Clients are important. All of that is, and you're nervous, right? You want to get the word out, but getting it out incorrectly is actually could really hurt you for a very long time. And I've got to be honest with you. I'm now in this post phase where, when we talked about before we started, where even our brand gets confused with fractional COOs, which is what we are not. And it's because I didn't spend the time on really thinking again and stepping back and kind of retreating it and going through a whole marketing plan. So yeah, you're right. I was totally raw in that email. I'm like, oh my God, I totally understand. And yet if you look at our website and our presence, we look like we have it all together. But I can tell you this duct tape moving was not a great way to go. It's very expensive. It's time consuming. You're constantly trying to align all your different people from, let's say it's a writer, to the person that's posting social media, to the person who's writing articles, to the person who's doing design. And all of a sudden you feel like, oh my God, I have all these people that I'm just spending so much time working with and managing. I'm not able to work on my business.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I hear that so often. It's funny timing of our conversation too, because I just talked with a small business owner who's in that position right now. She's like, I have all these people, I've been doing all these things, but there's like nothing tying it all together. And like, I need to be like doing my consulting and my coaching. I can't be like managing all of this. And yes, it is a common challenge, I think. So it's interesting to hear that you kind of did the whole branding marketing thing originally, but then it sounded like you shifted gears in your business and you didn't take the time to go through that exercise again. Tell me why you didn't. I don't want to make assumptions.
Well, you could make assumptions. I probably thought I had a good grip on things. I probably thought I learned well from that first experience, right, of sitting down and really doing it. Mm-hmm. The reality was that when I did it the first time, that person, Ken, I'll give him a name, brought structure, but didn't give me the templates. Brought structure to what we did throughout the days and just writing it all down, but then didn't like give me the open templates. So when I had to rebrand again, I didn't have anything to, it's not Ken's fault. I didn't have anything to go on, but I thought memory wise, oh, I've got this. And I didn't. And here's the other thing. And I always say this, we're emotional about our businesses. I don't care what you say. We cannot step outside of our bodies, void of emotion, and see it for what it is and what it's saying. So doing these things alone, it doesn't work. And God love my family, not great sounding boards either. So, I think I thought I had it. I think I thought I had done it before. I thought I wasn't being emotional, and I was. Yes.
That was going to be my guess, is you're like, oh, I've already done this before. I'm good. So that totally, it makes sense that you would think that. So that's really interesting to hear about the template thing, because as a little sidebar, the way when I work with my clients, I do like they get my frameworks. We go through the frameworks together. And I always say, like, when we do, when we get to the content strategy and we're doing buyer persona, it's like, we're going to choose 3 to work on together. But if you go away from this exercise and, a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, you're like, wait a minute, there's this new type of client we love to serve. Come back to this document and like go through the process again, like with that new person in mind. And so that actually, not that we planned on talking about this, but that's a good thing for business owners to be aware of when they are engaging with a marketing person, asking questions around what are those deliverables? What are those things that I get as the client to, and can I use them, in the future for my business?
Yeah, that's right. It's, listen, we all talk about EOS. We all talk about all these other frameworks, but what I don't see businesses doing is revisiting the marketing framework. Right. So first of all, I'm glad that you do that. And again, no fault to Ken, who did this years ago. People weren't giving away things. And frankly, when I did this, I'm going to give my age away. Software as a service was just coming out. So it wasn't like we had these online collaboration tools. And by the way, when it did come out, it was expensive at the time. Now software is cheaper. Yeah. So, I just, to be fair, we revisit processes. And well, most businesses don't, but let me talk about the ideal business. The ideal business that's scaling up, they revisit their processes, right? Their operational processes. They revisit their client experience. They revisit the things like, what are my goals, my vision for the business, and financial projections. They never revisit marketing. And guess what? It changes. And so does the attention span of the receiver of it. So, like I know, again, trying to DIY, not a good idea. Just to be honest, like learning how to write short, Smart Brevity I read, right? And like this idea that you can't do long prose. Then I went to a Chaz Horn's classes, like how to get through writing a social media post that has emotional intelligence in it. There are so many things that change along the way. So yeah, we have to find a better way to come back to that. and to revisit that. And even if it's little tweaks, that's an improvement unto itself.
I love that point. That is actually something that hasn't come up at all in the guests that I've had so far. So I love that we're talking about this. Marketing is not a one and done. I mean, to sit down and do a strategic marketing plan, it's great. You need it to lay that foundation and help you move forward. And like you're saying, it should be one of those areas, just like all the other areas of your business, that you are revisiting on a regular basis and assessing what needs to change. That's another thing that I'm a big data person. So I love looking at the data for my clients and being like, okay, where's the website traffic coming from? How many people are opening your emails? How engaged is your list? Like how, what can we glean from the data to say, how are things working and where can we, improve things going forward? And so, yeah, it's great to do that at the outset to start that strategic plan. And it's really helpful to do it again in 6 months or a year, or whatever those timeframes are to help you reassess. And the other point I want to kind of hammer home that you said too, Jen, is marketing is changing all the time, right? Consumer behavior is changing all the time. It's actually one of the things I like about marketing is that it's not just like set it and forget it. It's not like, it's not boring.
It's not, but you're totally right. And how do you know? And then, of course, there's the thing of, this is what the audience wants. This is the venue. Like, let's just use video versus audio. Okay. So they want video now, but video could have been 5 minutes years ago. Now maybe you got 10 seconds. Like, everything changes. So that also means maybe the tech changes. Maybe your voice changes. Maybe the words you use, you got to consolidate. Like, there is so much. And yeah, I think, we go to the doctor every year. I don't understand. We talk about health of businesses, health of people. It's the same. You got to go for your kind of checkup there.
I love that. Oh, this is giving me great ideas for my own content that I could be creating. I love it.
And I'm thinking of all the things on my list that I need to do. So I'm glad you're smiling, because inside this is hard.
You're like, oh gosh, make a little side note for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Okay, so Jen, when we kind of like prepped for this conversation, we discussed, maybe hiring copywriters and web designers and kind of having to like go through that and maybe hiring more people than you planned on over the course of the years. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, where's the tissues? Let me go back to go for it. That experience made me know that it should have started at the top and kind of like a strategist / coach. I don't know you call yourself, but I'd say the coach part, because there is some mental game here, okay, that we have to play in our heads. And then the strategist, which is I can see the big picture. I can lay that out. These are things we need to do. The tuck-ins of the people, that what I learned is that I needed to be more particular. I needed to vet more and try to match my voice too, right? Like if you want short prose, if you're the type of person that tries to cut the words out, like I do, I say one word for every 10 I should, right? Well, don't pick somebody that's long and frothy. So that was one of the things. Also, too, how they communicate. Because if they communicate in a way that you don't find effective for you, then you get edgy. And so when you review their work, you're not reviewing it with the right lens. You're not in the right frame of mind. And so you don't get the right output. So I know this sounds, again, like teeny little details, but I learned it matters greatly. Someone like you mentioned about data. I don't want to be a data hog on it, but you can't just write for the sake of writing. There is a purpose for it. It is to get the word out. Maybe it's more followers. Maybe it's more lead calls. Maybe it's you want to be seen as an expert to be a speaker. You got to go back and look at the data. And so if that provider doesn't look at the data, this is another thing I learned, keep your own metrics. Like we literally right now, and I'm hoping with our marketing agency that we get away from this, but we literally have an Excel sheet where we're pulling metrics from all different sources and trying to see patterns. Like if we wrote this and published then, do we see a bump later? That took 17 years for me to come up with.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
I know, mistake, but
yeah,
sharing, right?
Well, but like good for you in recognizing that that was something you needed for your business. And if your providers weren't giving it to you, you're like, I'm going to create it myself because this is important.
Yeah.
Because a lot of business owners never realize that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
But maybe they realize it, but they're scared of the result. Like, don't get me wrong, with the amount of time spent with all these people working on marketing, different facets of it, right? Do I really want to see a low result? Not really, especially when there's dollars assigned to it. My time, money, but you got to face the facts some days.
Yeah. So I want to go back to something you were saying, right? Because I love on this show having the opportunity to really share those lessons learned and to give the listeners like tangible things that they can take away and think, okay, how can I apply this to my own marketing for my business?
Yeah.
So when you were talking about evaluating copywriters or whoever's, doing some writing for you, whatever that writing looked like, and really digging into like, how do they approach it? What would be some advice that you would give to a business owner who is going out to hire for some type of writing for their marketing? What questions should they be asking? What things should they be aware of? Right? Because hindsight's 2020.
Absolutely. Okay. So one thing is, obviously you've got to look at samples of work, and samples, just to be fair, they can't be in a Word document. They have to be online. Like at this point, it's not enough to see that, because they could have just mocked that up yesterday, and for all I know, it could have been done in AI at this point. You know what I mean? Like I'm not that good at spotting AI yet. The younger people are. So one is, you've got to see real. Two, I'm going to go back to communication. So you need to ask their references, and get references. What and how did they communicate with you when they had content ideas? Were they proactive, or did you have to come up with the ideas and then they did the work?
Yep.
Know if that particular writer was creative on their own and, was passionate about it enough to kind of put stuff in front of you versus you asking for it. So that is another thing you want to be asking in the interview process, and definitely with references. The third, I think, is the data, right? Is there any data that they're going to be looking at? The fourth, what tools do they use? I think that's really important. And I didn't want to knock AI before. I'm pro AI. Like, you can use it for certain things, not for everything, right? So because I want to know that the writer is using their highest calling skill, which is putting the storyline together, right? Whatever that may be, whether it's a post, article, or something like that. So I do want to know that they're using the tools so they're not spending too much time on something that could be really automated more quickly. That's number 4. Let me think of number 5.
You don't need to have 5. I
don't think I need to have 5. Yeah, I'm going to stick with 4.
Those are really good. And I want to go back specifically because this is something that has come up with past guests.
Yeah.
Your point about the proactivity or lack thereof with the service provider. This is something I've heard a lot, that, you as a business owner go into like hiring someone to help with marketing, writing, let's just say writing for, social media and blogs and, your ongoing marketing efforts. And you hire someone, you're like, okay, great. And then you realize, wait a minute, they're waiting on me to feed them ideas to then set them off to the races to actually write stuff. And you as the business owner have a zillion things that you're trying to manage, keep all those balls in the air. And you're like, wait a minute, I hired you to make my life easier, but now you're waiting on me. So having that clarity of what does that working relationship look like, to your point, what is that communication? How is this actually going to work so that I know going into it, what's going to be required of me as the business owner?
That's exactly right. Because that's when you look back and go, wait a minute, we didn't really do anything. Well, that was on you, owner. Right. And so, this whole idea of it's management, right? It's just like your employees or your contractors, or your providers for that matter. We always assume once they're on, they'll know what to do. Well, they can't read your mind. Kind of like my spouse says, I can't read your mind. Could you write it on a board? So I listen, you could add a million interview questions on the providers, but you're totally right. It is about the proactivity and staying organized and lock and step. And so finding your groove. Is it a weekly call where you just let them know everything going on and they pick pieces out of those stories, right? Or is it having an intermediary who manages all that? like again, we can use the word fractional, like a fractional
Yep.
CMO that just says, I've got this, I got all the pieces, it's good. If we need you, we'll let you know. But that's
Yes.
the proactive player in that. Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is okay. So I'm going to turn the tables on you for 1 second. I gave
Okay.
4 interview questions. Is there an interview question that you would ask of a copywriter?
An interview question I would ask of a copywriter.
Or an
I
expectation?
don't, yes. So I would, I'm sort of answering a question, but I'm not. One thing that I am very aware of, and this comes into play when I am finding copywriters for my clients for different things, are that there are different copywriters for different areas of your marketing. So like if you as a business owner, if we're working together and we're creating your marketing plan, you're like, we really need to like get an email. We decide, right? We really need to get an email sequence together to nurture new people coming onto our list. So that's a project we need to do. I have a couple people in my network who specialize in email copywriting. Like I'm going to go to them and be like, okay, let's get this email sequence in place. This is what's important to us. This is what we want the goal to be. Versus I have other clients who are like, oh gosh, our website, like we really need to revamp it. Like, I just don't feel like it doesn't feel like us, like the content that's on there. I have different copywriters I'm going to go to for that type of work. And so that's the first thing that comes to mind when you're like, what question would you ask? Is like, well, what type of copywriting do you specialize in? Because there are some copywriters who do all of it, but depending on what your needs are, it's better to get as specialized as possible, because website copy has different goals than email copy does and needs to be written in a certain way. So I think that the more you can find those specialized providers for exactly what you need, the better. And I would love to get your thoughts on this, Jen, but I think it's a really tough thing for business owners to know and navigate, because I don't think most business owners even know, like, oh, there's different copywriters for different things that you need written.
And that's exactly why you're needed. They don't know. I didn't know. I learned the hard way. Lots of money, lots of time, not hitting the mark and blaming myself. How could I not know this? Well, guess what? That is not my area of expertise. But at
Right.
the time, then who's that glue? It's the Ken person, it's the you person that lays out, here's the strategy, here's all the major pieces. And by that point, you guys know the business inside and out. You're the ones who should be running the show, not the owners. And this is hard. When you're a small business, and I have a model where we don't have clients for life for a long time, so that's even harder, right? Then is the investment, you have to look at the number and say, is the investment worth it? And this is why I love that you allowed me to be on with you. It is absolutely worth it, because to not do it is a crushing blow. It's a crushing blow. If I shared the percentage of what I spend on marketing over all these years, it is a very big number. It can get out of control when not managed, but it's because it didn't have the impact. And that is your point, because you're right. The number one complaint I hear from small businesses, mid-size, is my marketing is just killing me. And I'm like, why? And they're like, I must be hiring the wrong people. I got all these different people. They're not all talking to each other. What's it worth to have it right,
Yes. Yeah. What I'm hearing from you, and tell me if I'm restating this accurately, is it can be costly to do the marketing strategy up front, but it sounds like it ends up being even more costly when you don't do that.
That's correct. It can be 10 times more costly when you don't do that. And that is the point. Invest and do it right. Do it top down. And then if you're lucky enough, the person that you did that with can coordinate and find the right people at the right time for the right things. It's like the right seats, right bus, the whole same deal.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. I feel like we could just like do a mic job right now and be like,
leave it. We're good.
This is what everyone needs.
I know, but you don't want to discourage the owners, right? Like, where do you start then? I mean, maybe that's what we should do, is because if I'm sitting in the shoes listening to this, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm right at the beginning, or you know what, I've kind of patched it together. You're right. This is what I need to do. What do you start? What do you look for? Like, what, to be fair, like in my world, I would look for, I would look for somebody who had CMO in their words, but said they worked with small businesses, or I would look for a marketing coach. What words would you tell them to look for?
Yes. Marketing strategist, marketing consultant, also like those different, or strategic marketing consultant. I think having strategy in there is big. And yeah, like you said, that's exactly where my mind was going as well, was like, so how do people take that first step? Who should I be looking for? Who do I need to talk to? And I think going back to even those sample questions that you gave, talking about copywriting specifically, so much of that could be applied when you're looking for a marketing strategist or consultant or coach or, fractional CMO or whatever that title is, that strategy person who's going to, I talk about it in terms of like, there's a puzzle, right? That's like your marketing. And so my job as the strategist is to figure out what puzzle pieces go together to create your unique marketing plan. And so asking some of those questions to get a sense of like, well, how much guidance am I going to get? Are there frameworks? What's the deliverable? What does this look like? How long is it going to take? What's your communication style? Those kinds of things. Is there anything else you'd add? I just threw a lot.
No, that was good. That was awesome. That's right. I always say, just draw me a picture, please. I'm a visual learner. Well, 65% of us are. I'm like, just draw me a picture and I'll get it.
Love it. Love it. I would make you a picture in Canva if it were me.
Yeah,
my drawing is not so good.
I'm doing stick figures, but it's all good. It's all good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Jen, I think that we shared tons of information. Thank you so much for just being so open and honest, and your willingness to share your story to help all of our listeners. Is there any last piece of advice or thing we didn't talk about, or maybe something we did talk about that you just want to like leave our listeners with as kind of the parting takeaway?
I would just say this, because I'm very slanted toward visualizing all things, is that to keep your fear level down, to keep budget under control and not follow those shiny objects, I'm going to leave with that visualization that we ended on. Like, write it out. If you're working with someone that doesn't, then sketch out all the different pieces of marketing and flip it around. Is this what we're doing? So that you have a really good sense and feel a sense of control around it, because that calming will get you better results.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And very lastly, is if anyone listening today wants to get a hold of you, learn more about you, your business, or maybe even ask you some more marketing questions, if you're game for that, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I think the best way is just to go to myvirtualcoo.com, or just find me, Jen Goldman, on LinkedIn. I don't think you'll miss me at this point. The branding is pretty good. Yeah, but seriously, just reach out. We can chat. I am definitely an open book. I always have been. And listen, my heart is for small, mid-sized businesses, especially small. So yeah, don't struggle. Ask for help.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. I really appreciate